Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast. I'm Kamran.
And I'm Billy.
Billy, what would you say we do here?
Well, we like to dig deep into a bunch of books and shows and movies that we love.
In excruciating detail, right?
In excruciating detail. And we like to talk about things that we like about them, what they make us think, and what we learn from them. And a lot of times we're going to go off topic, but we're going to bring it back in. Basically, it is just two guys hanging out talking about their favorite stuff. And it's not meant to be a replacement for anything. It's meant to be a companion to anything that we're talking about, any shows, any movies, any books that we're talking about. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show with us.
One final note before we begin the episode. If you would like to support our show, we have a Patreon set up. You can find the link at horsefrogproductions.com. You can also email us with any feedback at contact@horsefrogproductions.com. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description. Today we are talking through episode 4 of The Boys, the show on Amazon Prime. I'm joined by Billy, my co-host.
Greetings. What's going on?
It's going good.
Good.
All right. We will do our standard NSFW warning prior to episodes of this show. This show is intended for a mature audience and has extreme violence and some scenes of sexual misconduct. If these topics upset you, then we do not recommend you continue listening. And today should be a particularly intense episode, given the content.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the stuff, what's interesting is the way they intermix some of this stuff. It's like a really heavy scene, and then you go to another scene that's like a joke.
Right.
It kind of...
Yeah, they balance it very, very heavily. It's because I've never had a show that borderlines between such hardcore drama and then there's such crazy slapstick violence comedy.
That's a good way to describe the comedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we'll get into it.
Cool.
The episode begins with a dream. Butcher is making love to a woman, one we've never seen before. His beard is gone, so we know it's sometime in the past. There is a bulldog in the corner. Is that an English bulldog, you think?
I think so, because that's those real ugly ones. They're real friendly, but they're real ugly.
You think they're ugly? I think they're cute.
Well, I think they're so they're cute because they're so ugly.
Like a Frenchie?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
They're an entirely man-made species. They can't even reproduce on their own.
I did not know that about those.
Yeah, I think they have to have like C-sections on all of their births.
Oh, wow. And I know that they all have horrific breathing problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they're cute, but
they are cute.
All right, there's Bulldog in the corner. I didn't mention this before, but one time when Butcher and Huey were in Butcher's car, I think this was in episode 1.
I think so.
Huey looked in the back seat and he saw some dog toys. He asked Butcher if he has a dog, and Butcher told him he didn't. Huey was a little confused. The dog toys in the back seat.
Right.
Okay. The overall feel of the scene is one of a better time. The way that they're filming it, well, the way they've been filming the show in general is kind of more harsh, kind of lighting, a little bit darker tint to it, I would say.
Yeah,
maybe.
they strip out all that warmth.
Mm-hmm. This scene is particularly warm.
Yes.
The lighting, yeah. After they're cuddling in their post-coitus positions, she is trying to get him to go to some band reunion tour. He doesn't want to go. They have a little bit of banter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Butcher wakes up, and we see that this was all a dream. The lighting is back to normal as the show has been up to this point, and he has his beard back. We are back in present day. The first thing he sees when he wakes up is an empty dog kennel in the corner. He's getting ready for the day. His breakfast is made up of a Hot Pocket. And the furnishings in this domicile are minimal. It would seem he doesn't spend much time here.
I stated that, we've heard the term Spartan living,
mm-hmm.
To mean that you don't live with much. It's like, dude, this guy makes the Spartans look like they live big.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got, a place to sleep, a place to sit and eat and watch something all in the same. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a studio.
Yeah, it's a place to sleep.
Right. He sits down at a table in front of the TV with his hot pocket, and he turns on a recording. The date says it's from January 23rd of 2012. It's sometime in the past. I can't remember what the exact date is that this show is supposed to be taking place, but it's at least 6 years later, I would say.
Yeah.
The video is from a surveillance camera in a park. It has the woman from his dream, and she's sitting on a bench. She gets up and she walks in the direction of the camera. It's a surveillance camera, and she looks really distraught. Butcher rewinds the video and pauses it, zooming in on her so he can see her face better. She looks really upset.
Yes.
Yeah, like she's struggling with something.
She is an actress I really like very much.
Is she the one that has been in wait, was she the mom from Watchmen? Is that the same actress?
No, I don't really know anything else she's been in except for she was on The Flash for a while, kind of a love interest, and she's just a cute thing. She's cute, and she has that same kind of personality on The Flash. You know, kind of cute, bubbly, real sweet kind of gal.
She reminds me of that lady that played the mom in Watchmen.
She kind of does look a little bit like that.
She was Marv's case handler in Sin City. Same
that's
actress.
Right. Yeah, I forget that's the same actress.
Yeah,
such a Sin City fan.
That's a great movie,
dude. Mm-hmm. Huge. I'm a huge Frank Miller fan. So yeah, and I love The Watchmen too. But no, that's a different woman. They're very similar. Okay. Carla Gugino.
Right.
And it's Chantel Van Satin, I think, it plays Butcher's woman he's looking at here. Chantel something.
Okay. All right. We're taken to a CIA building. Susan is coming into work. That's the woman that Butcher used to work with, and he broke into her house in the last episode. When she walks into her office, she is pleasantly surprised by Butcher. She is unhappy to see him, and she asks how he got into her office. He doesn't even bother responding. He's looking through files that are in her file cabinet. And
I love how he's in a CIA place.
Yeah. He wants to use some credentials to get in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. She tells him he's like mold on her laundry room tiles that she scrapes off and it comes right back. And his response is great. He tells her she has a bit of a moisture problem.
Doesn't he say it sounds like you got a bit of a moisture problem, love?
Yeah, that's the exact quote. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
She begins to call security to escort him out, and he puts his finger on the thing that hangs it up and tells her he can prevent the Supes from getting in the military. She says, "What makes you think I care?" She is kind of excited about them going to Syria.
Is that sincerity, or is she just being lippy?
Well, at this time, ISIS was a thing in Syria, right? I don't know if it still is.
I wouldn't have minded them boys going in there in all honesty, but I don't know. I didn't know how to read that. I was just asking that sincerely, you know.
I take it as genuine sincerity because at this time when this show was coming out, it was a really difficult situation over there.
Right. It's still a difficult situation over there.
It is. I don't know that it is as bad as it was back then. I mean, it's still bad, right? But it's not as active as it was back then, I think. He shows her pictures of A-Train and Popclaw taking Compound V and explains it's some kind of soup steroid. Butcher paints a picture of the damage it would cause to the reputation of the Supes if they were nothing but a bunch of addicts taking drugs to gain their powers. She asks if Butcher has a sample, and he tells her, not yet. She makes a very good point that it could be anything in the vials. You know, it could be heroin. Sure. She names a bunch of drugs. Butcher says he is shocked and saddened that she doesn't trust him. She doesn't believe that he sincerely means that. And I do love their banter.
I do too. It's very sincere, and you know, there's a lot of history back there, of course, that I don't know if we'll know about.
Mm-hmm. She goes on to mention that she hasn't seen translucent around and asks if Butcher would know anything about that. And Butcher's response is crazy. Butcher says he's invisible. He could be standing in the corner servicing himself right there for all they know.
And it sounds like a pretty normal day for that fellow, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I don't think it's mischaracterizing him at all.
Not at all.
Yep.
Well, you know what? What else are you going to do if you're invisible to show that you're powerful? Is that a marking your territory kind of thing? I got no idea.
Oh, geez. I don't even want to try to get into that mindset. I'm not even going to.
We don't have to. He's dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Butcher goes on to sell his proposal for preventing the Supes from entering the military. His sales pitch boils down to this. If she thinks the Supes are assholes now, wait until they're wearing camouflage.
Yep.
What's to stop Sergeant Homelander from killing a couple 100,000 Chinese? Who will try him for war crimes? He will murder everyone before he steps foot in the Court of International Justice in The Hague.
Yep.
He finishes his point saying they may as well hand over the nuclear launch keys to Vought.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had a quick sidebar on this comment about The Hague.
I read that. That was very interesting.
Yeah, it spawned some curiosity in me because I'm sure most people have heard that this is where the war criminals are tried, but honestly, I don't remember ever.
You know, that wasn't for me. The only thing I ever knew about war criminals being tried was always, of course, Nuremberg for the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
But, I grew up closer to that generation. And, but I've always heard The Hague, that word bandied about, and I've never taken the time to look into it. I just assumed it was some places where they hammered out details on pieces and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I looked it up, and I have a little excerpt here from DutchReview.com. They had an article on this. In 1893, somebody named Tobias Osser, I don't know if I'm saying that right, he's a Dutch lawyer and a legal scholar who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1911. He founded the Hague Conference on Private International Law. The peace conferences that followed led to the creation of the Permanent Court of Arbitration in 1899. The court mediates disputes between countries and sits on the Hague's Peace Palace, created especially for it. And this is the building. If you look up the Hague, this is what you're going to see.
Okay.
It's a really pretty building.
I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm. The beautiful, I'm reading an article here, and open to visitation, Peace Palace is also home to the International Court of Justice. It is the highest legal body of the United Nations and the only main branch of the UN that is not located in New York. It was founded right after World War II, and the court is responsible for settling legal disputes submitted by countries, as well as for giving opinions on legal issues. Around the millennial...
I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you a big fan of the UN, or you don't know? I don't know enough about it, but I'm not a big fan of these guys, though. I have certain reasons, because we have certain countries that sit on the UN that are particularly hostile to our interests and telling us how to do our business, and some crazy people sitting in power telling us what to do.
Well, okay, so my general thought on life in general is I think people should be allowed to do what they want as long as they're not intruding or suppressing anybody else. Right.
I think you and I tend to be more libertarian, right?
Yeah, I would lean more that direction.
This a little bit, yeah.
The challenge is full libertarian is like the chemical plant down the street is dumping stuff into the groundwater, right? So I don't know where the balance lies between the government staying out of my business and then not over regulation, right?
Agreed.
There's got to be some compromise. So to your question about the UN, there has to be some body for countries to try to get along, I feel.
Sure.
Outside of that, I honestly don't know. Because
I think I have your general. I kind of feel generally about the same like you, but I don't think it's ever used in the way that it makes sense. Because what you and I say sounds like it makes too much sense.
Mm.
Wait! This makes entirely too much sense. It's like. I agree.
It makes sense.
Exactly. I agree with everything you just said there, sir. So. Okay, sorry about the digression. Okay.
All right, let's continue on our little tour of The
Of the
international,
Hague.
yeah. So around the millennial generation birth era, right after the end of the Cold War, international law went through a revival. The period saw the creation of many and sometimes groundbreaking international organizations. Europol was in 1994. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or the OPCW, was founded in 1997.
Are you down
And
with the OPCW? I'm so sorry. Please continue, sir.
yeah, you know me.
Yes. Now with OPP. Okay, sorry.
And the International Criminal Court in 2002 are some examples of organizations that were founded around this time. They're all based in The Hague, contributing to the solidification of the city's reputation as the international city of peace and justice.
I'm assuming this city is just absolutely gorgeous. I'll pull it up, I guess.
Yeah, especially in the spring. You probably got a lot of tulips available in the area.
Cool.
Yeah.
That looks absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's
go.
go.
A major contributor to this branding of The Hague is the International Crime Court. It's responsible for judging some of the most horrific international crimes. And I'm not going to list these out because they're the worst ones you can possibly imagine, right? Yeah,
sure.
It's the stuff that they have to have like people on Facebook to make sure it doesn't get on there, right. And they're having mental problems from seeing it all day. Although the court has condemned some really bad guys, its reach is limited. This is the part that I found really interesting, and the reason I wanted to go into all this.
Okay.
It can only trial crimes committed by or in the territory of countries that have accepted the court's authority. Notable absences in this category are the United States, Israel, and Iraq.
Okay.
I thought it was really interesting that the U.S. and Israel in particular are not among those accepting the authority of this court.
Well, I'm assuming that, of course, so much of this stuff in The Hague, and the reason I asked this about the UN earlier is because so much of that stuff in the UN runs contrary to the United States' best interest and Israel's interest. And the Israelis are good allies, and they're great medical allies to have too, because their advances in medicine are amazing. So, these are people we want on our side. Well, and I'm a Christian. I'm sorry. I'm extremely biased about about being a big Jewish lover. So, so I mean, it's part of my religion, we're big fans of the Jews.
Okay. So, although while not technically accurate, that Homelander would be held to account in the court, because, I mean, he's based out of the United States, right? So they wouldn't even recognize
They wouldn't recognize it, would it?
They don't have the reach to try him, right? Even if they could. But Butcher gets his point across, right? No one can hold him to account.
Yes.
Yeah. And this kind of brings escalation to mind. Similar to nuclear weapons as a deterrent, countries relying on soups to bolster their military would be a deterrent to any action for fear of the devastation they could cause, right? Say, whatever your opposition is in the world has soups at their disposal. You don't want these two duking it out in one of your major cities.
Well, this
It'd
is
be just
really
like Man of Steel.
Yeah, and it's not a whole lot different from the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old enough to, like I said, I graduated high school in '87, so I grew up under the threat of the Cold War, and where us and the Russians are trying to see how many thousands upon thousands of nuclear devices we can manufacture. You would run into this same problem, I believe, but with just a bunch of superpowered people. And I think I'd rather, and it puts an odd question because you have people that the superpowered people would be told what to do, or they could do what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you run into issues.
Yeah.
Because different nations having different superpowers, if you have a militant group that runs a country, they're going to have a militant superhero. Right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean someone that would run very counter to our best people and humanity's best interest for the most part. But you think about the places in the Middle East that are so backwards because of the government being so heavy-handed.
Well, I mean, it's really anywhere where you have some type of authoritarian government, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Susan thinks about what Butcher just said for a moment, and she comes to the decision that if Butcher can get her some hard proof, she will provide him with some funding to cover his operating costs. She finishes by telling him if he screws her on this, she will put him in a black site detention facility for the rest of his life and makes him verbalize his understanding.
Now, would this pay Fritchie back his $40K plus?
I assume so. I mean, their operating costs cannot be. I think we're up to $160K, right?
Okay,
we
sure.
decided it was double of double, and he already
Right.
owed it 40, and he promised double, and then he
But Frenchie points out that, was it
doubled
zero,
their zero. Yeah.
well, 0, 0. So
Butcher tries to be cute, saying this is why it never went anywhere with them. You can't have two alpha males. She is dead serious and interrupts him. She repeats herself. She says, "Tell me you understand." And he acquiesces and verbalizes his understanding. Out on the street, Butcher has left, and he calls Popclaw on the phone, and he tries to shake her down for more information. She's told them about some noodle shop that A-Train goes to when he is transporting the Compound V around.
Mm.
She only knows this because he comes back with the sesame noodles after he runs there. That's the extent of her knowledge in relation to his activities. Butcher tells her she better be right, or the video of her and the landlord will end up on Pornhub in the fatal cunnilingus section.
would there actually be a section for that?
I hope not.
I certainly hope not. I don't want to see it. I'm just curious.
No. Yeah. She tries to respond to this, but he hangs up on her. She's a little flabbergasted. I mean, she's already a train wreck after
Boy, she
killed
sure
that
is.
guy. Yeah. And it's getting pretty bad. We're taken to a van where Frenchie, MM, and Huey are surveilling the noodle shop. MM is on the phone with Monique, his wife.
I love Monique's conversations.
He's apologizing about how much time he's been spending at work. Notably, he is lying to her, telling her that he is still working at the detention facility.
So I'm also curious, like he was like, these guys have got to be having some money set aside to not be going to work and just start trailing soups, right?
Well, he's talking about he has to get paid.
Right.
So there must be a paycheck coming in, unless he took vacation from work.
Right.
Yeah, but they never really go into that. Too much minutia, I guess.
Yeah, it's excruciating minutia. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm just saying
that's what this show's for.
We thought about it, right? I mean,
right? What this
yeah,
show's
exactly.
about.
That's what our show's for. Excruciating level of detail. There's a great exchange between Frenchie and MM here. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
After MM gets off the phone, he does this kissing thing, and Frenchie's just looking at him. This prompts MM to tell Frenchie to say something.
I love it. Say something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frenchie quotes Jean-Paul Sartre saying, "Marriage stifles our essential male urges." And MM says he died old and lonely, not to mention his girl was sleeping with another man. Frenchie counters saying, yeah, they were free to explore. And MM says, explore what, gonorrhea? He asks Frenchie, why work so hard if you don't have someone to go home to at night and sleep next to them?
No, agreed.
This kind of catches Huey's attention. I think he's been kind of spacing out in the back.
Yeah.
And now he's probably thinking about his loss.
Yeah, but still fresh.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Do you think the whole first season takes place, over 2-3 weeks at the most?
I mean, I don't even think we're out of a week yet, to be honest with you.
I don't think we are either.
Just boom, boom, boom.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. I was just kind of curious about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's just one bad scenario to the next,
Yeah. Frenchie says he sleeps next to someone different every night. MM thinks that Frenchie is old and lonely and will probably die by himself. And Frenchie shuts MM down here, asking if his marriage is so pure, why is he lying to Monique about where they are? MM has no response, and he just kind of nods because Frenchie made a great point.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And I just love their dialogue. It feels so really real.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, just sometimes stupid stuff is just said, and sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's not, but I love the dialogue. It's just spectacular.
Yeah, when you have to spend an exorbitant amount of time with people,
Yes,
right? And like they are, they're going to be in this van all day together. You find things to talk about,
absolutely.
and this is the kind of stuff that comes up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Point taken.
A noodle delivery guy is walking down the street and he bumps into someone by accident. Frenchie notices this and sees that the guy has a gun in a shoulder holster and brings it to everyone's attention. They follow the delivery guy. He goes through some alleys and stuff, and then he ends up in a bodega. Would you categorize that as a bodega? Like
It's a little bitty shop, little street shop. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then once he's in there, he enters some back room. And Huey's like, "Oh no, we have to go in there, don't we?" Frenchie
So I'm
says,
sorry. I'm going to go back to your bodega thing for a minute. Being from the smaller cities in the South here, we have a lot of these kind of bodegas things. They're just not called that, but that's kind of what I imagine all these big cities have in these certain areas of town. Is a lot of these little tiny little shops.
The only reason I mentioned it is because this is New York, and I believe they call those kind of stores bodegas.
That's what I was thinking too. When you say bodega, I just automatically think New York for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. Frenchie tells Huey to stop worrying, and he says, "Stop worrying, petite Huey." And Frenchie has taken to calling Huey petite Huey, and Huey asks him to stop calling that. He's like, "I'm like 6 feet tall." It's great.
Well, I just bought the first compilation of comics, and it does the guy looks kind of similar to Huey. He is a little tall, but he's just a gangly, nerdy looking dude.
Yeah, I think Frenchie means it more as young and inexperienced, right?
Probably very much compared to these guys. Absolutely.
And literally not a height disadvantaged person. You like that?
A vertically challenged insult.
Yeah. They pick the lock to the door and go in. I think it's interesting that while MM and Frenchie has some training in this type of activity, when they go down in here, they bring Huey all the way down in there with them.
I know it.
Right? And they know this guy has a gun.
Tech. Yeah. He's got no ability. He's like, I at least have shotguns and grown up shooting guns.
But even then, like sweeping and clearing whatever you're about to enter.
Yeah. I wouldn't want Huey on that for sure.
Yeah. They enter a network of rooms in the basement of the store. There are 3 men eating at a table. One of them is the noodle delivery guy. The boys sneak past, and Frenchie finds a room that has a girl in it. The door to the room is made of iron bars. She's watching some Japanese music video, and it seems to be on repeat. She's also Japanese.
Yeah.
MM is trying to get Frenchie to look for the compound V, because that was ultimately their mission, is to get access to it. But Frenchie is really captivated by this girl in this room.
Well, it's hard to see someone in a jail cell because it's basically, especially in, it's one thing if they're in a jail where we at least on the outside think some kind of due process has happened. This is just some chick shoved in a cell,
guarded by 3 men.
Yeah, and just in some place in New York, it's like, oh, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Frenchie wants to let her go, and MM is trying to keep them focused on the mission objective, saying this isn't a rescue. And then Huey is kind of surprised. He tells MM that he sounds like Butcher. MM responds that he sounds like someone that wants to be breathing.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
Always
Frenchie doesn't listen, opens the door to the room, making a loud noise. Now, the girl has her back to the door, and she slowly turns her head at the sound of this noise.
And she is also, just for our people listening, is pretty dirty.
She is, yeah, filthy. Looks like she hasn't had a bath in a while.
Yeah. Her hair
is stringy, right?
Yeah.
The men from the other room run in, having heard the noise of the door opening. They have machine guns and start shooting at the boys. The girl launches herself out of the room, making a 10 to 15 foot leap, and dispatches 2 of the men in a most gruesome fashion.
Oh, it's brutal.
And she's basically like Wolverine, except she doesn't have claws. She's using her fingers to do all the damage. It's pretty wild, right? She's super strong, as can be seen. She is Wolverine from your perspective? More
Yeah, because
X-23, I guess.
we'll learn more about this later on. But yeah, the way that she's just think about that. That's like a rabid animal. The way she digs into that guy's eyeballs
Yeah,
and starts to pull his head apart. You're like, wow.
she slashes one of their abdomens, right, leaving
Yes.
lacerations just from her fingers.
Yes.
The part that was really hard was when one of the guys was prone on the ground and she's like rapid punching into the abdominal cavity. I mean, it's just like a bowl of mush when she's done with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The noodle delivery is the last guy to enter. He sees what's happened to his two companions, and but instead of dealing with what she's about to do to him, he backs up to the wall and just blows his own head off.
Yeah. That's kind of scary to think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, didn't even think twice about it. He was just like, nuh-uh, I'm out, you know? Yeah. Huey is in shock. He's like, oh.
You're right. Yeah, this is harsh, dude.
Mm-hmm. Now, she's in rabid attack dog mode. The boys all run as quickly as they can into her containment cell, and they close the door. And somehow they're able to hold it shut without her getting to them.
Ripping their fingers off.
Yeah. And she reaches for them, but she doesn't seem to be able to think through opening the door, right? She's just trying to get at them. She's like in a feral state almost, right?
Total adrenaline jacked up here. No thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then she runs off. We are then taken to a counseling session. The Deep is speaking with his counselor.
This is so brutal. I'm sorry.
He's telling a story about how a couple weeks ago, he and some of the other soups were sitting around drinking and watching the Super Bowl. The Deep is very emotional. He's going on about how he really tried to talk to the guys. And the counselor says, about? And the Deep responds, dolphins.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I tell you what, man.
I love it. No, it's so funny. It's so the guy that plays the Deep is great, dude.
The writers are really doing him dirty. I mean, they're making the biggest joke out of him.
He's terrible.
It's so bad. The Deep
sad.
goes on.
It's kind of sad.
It is sad.
Now, when we talk about the Japanese here,
yeah,
are you reminded of South Park Whale Wars?
I don't remember that episode.
Oh my word! That's where they actually get control of the Whale Wars boat, and they actually start attacking the Japanese because the Japanese are killing all the whales and dolphins.
Who gets control of it?
Stan.
Oh, okay.
And this goes on because it's just so violent and brutal. But the reason why the Japanese hate whales and dolphins is because the Japanese were given a doctored photo after Hiroshima, and it shows whales and dolphins are flying Enola Gay.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So that's why they hate whales and dolphins so much.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, Kyle's correction is to show a chicken and a cow flying the bomber. So therefore, they're like us, and they'll just kill chickens and cows from now on.
My word.
Sorry.
That's pretty good, though.
It's hilarious. It's amazing.
They always satisfy.
I don't know how a show that's that short can deliver so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Back to the Japanese.
Yeah. The Deep goes on about how the Japanese slaughter 20,000 dolphins a year. And I wanted to point out that it's not just the Japanese. I think it was last year I saw an article about this massacre they had in the Faroe Islands, and the pictures were really tough to look at. It was just like a beach covered in blood. They killed like 1,400 dolphins. That's not,
I don't get that either. It's like, that's so unnecessary as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
they're not fish, they're mammals. I mean,
yeah, there's that documentary called Blackfish. Have you watched that?
I've heard about it. That's about one of the orcas that killed some handlers in SeaWorld or something like that.
And he actually sired quite a few number of those orcas that are in the various water parks around the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And it's a really tough movie to watch, but I think it's kind of important because it sheds light on these are really intelligent creatures. And then when this one the blackfish was captured, one of the guys that was involved in capturing it, they were interviewing him, and he was just like sobbing, giving his testimony about how bad he felt because they were like driving them towards other boats using sound and stuff, and then they're using nets to catch. It's really bad. I don't want to get too far into it because I got pretty emotional watching it. It's rough though.
Yeah, that'd be hard to watch.
Yeah, either way.
Okay.
Just I only wanted to
We'll check
point
it
out that it is not just the Japanese.
Right.
Yeah.
Other peoples do this.
Yes. Yeah, and I understand if this is your only food source and you're starving to death,
Absolutely.
then it is okay to sustainably fish what you have available to you.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah.
But this is not an issue of food for the especially for, I think, I don't understand why the whaling industry goes on.
I don't know enough about it.
I guess Archer makes a comment about this, unless you're just in need of some clean burning lamp oil,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand, I don't have it, don't get it.
Yeah. So after that sad digression, the Deep, the joke, continues on saying they have regional accents and a great sense of humor. They're hilarious, he thinks. And the night that he confided in the boys, the other soups, talking to them about dolphins, A-Train pulled a prank on him. He stuck a blow-up dolphin in his bed with lipstick on his blowhole.
Oh, my word.
The counselor tells the Deep he's sorry. That must have hurt. And the Deep...
Is the counselor trying hard to not laugh at this stuff, or is he genuine? He appears genuine.
I think he's being genuine.
He appears genuine. I just wasn't sure if it's,
Yeah.
Okay.
The Deep says, I'm the diversity hire. I'm a joke. So he knows he's a joke.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I can talk to fish. So what? How often do you need to be saved by a school of salmon? The counselor tells him that's not true.
If he had been in Jaws, he'd have been the hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't have had much of a movie, but hey.
The counselor tells him that's not true, and he cites the Deep helping some Carnival cruise ship.
Now, I make a note here. Do you remember the food poisoning stuff on Carnival?
Oh yeah,
I think it was norovirus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was looking before I wrote that down just to make sure, and it was norovirus, and that was a pretty big. Do you think that's what they're probably referencing?
I don't know, because they've had a couple of situations where they ran aground.
Okay.
There was the Costa whatever in Italy that had a really rookie captain. He was trying to do a drive-by of a coast, got too close, and ran it aground. It was a bad situation.
Sorry.
Yeah. But either way, cruise ships in general do not appeal to me.
Not to me at all, dude.
Yeah, I don't get it. But if you like it, knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out, dude. I just don't. I'm kind of scared of the ocean, dude.
Well, I got to be honest with you. When I was going offshore, I loved it.
Was that pretty cool?
Not the work, but when you're out in the ocean, it's really cool, man. The sunsets and the sunrises that you see are absolutely beautiful, and I really enjoyed being in some storms. Like the biggest storms I was in were like 15-foot swells, and it was pretty cool. To feel the power of nature. Yeah. And the wind and everything, and the rain. And it's just, the ocean's really amazing. When you get out there, you don't see any land. Yeah. I can't imagine the boats I was on were like 300 feet. Right. So they're not small, but
big boats.
Yeah. I imagine if you're in a little 20-foot sailboat, you might feel a little bit differently about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can't really walk around a lot,
Yeah. The Deep runs through a self-actualization exercise with some assistance from the counselor. He says, I need to self-actualize. I need to show more confidence. I'm one of the 7, and I can do anything I set my mind to. The counselor asks him, so what do you want to set your mind to? And the Deep gets a look in his eyes. He knows what he wants to do.
He's got a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to get to that. Just keep it together until we get there.
I will. Keep it together. Stay on target.
Yep. Yeah. Danger. You're about to veer off course.
Keep it together and stay on target again.
Yep.
Keep it together.
Back in the cell that was holding the Japanese soup, Frenchie is looking around the contents of the cell. he finds a blue bottle of nail polish in her nightstand, and he also notices the music video that's on the TV. What is it about this girl that's got Frenchie so interested?
To me, Frenchie is an underdog, man. He's kind of an underdog. I think he's got a thing for the underdogs. I think that may be why he likes Huey.
Mm-hmm.
But he may have a thing for picking up strays. But I think, like I said, seeing anybody in a cage that's not a sanctioned place where somebody's legally supposed to be, that's got to yank at you something in you. I would hope.
Right. Yeah. Well, as much as we like him, he was on point for the mission, right? But Frenchie is absolutely captivated by this
he
situation.
is, and she's a pretty thing once she's cleaned up, but he must see something there that that we don't see yet, because all that we see is that she is an animal at the moment.
Yeah, there's some scenes we can talk a little bit more about it later, I think.
Copy that.
Yeah. Butcher has arrived. He is commenting on the mess with the captors' bodies. He asks Huey if he's all right. Huey says, just when you think things can't get any more horrible. Butcher assures him, oh yeah, it can get a lot more horrible.
I appreciate that. I appreciate Butcher's ability to realize that it can always become more horrible.
Mm-hmm. In the cell, Frenchie finds part of a train ticket under her bedding. It has a passenger name along with the origin and destination stations on it. Outside the cell has found a cooler with syringes in it. It appears the captors were shooting the girl up with Compound V. And there is a box that the Compound V came in, and it has part of a shipping label on it. They're trying to figure out why the captors were dosing the girl. And tells Butcher to ask Foie Gras over here since he let her out, and points at Frenchie. I love Frenchie's response. He's like, she looked innocent.
Even dangerous people look innocent in jail sometimes. you know?
Yep. Cites all the evidence pointing at the fact that she should not have been released. She was in a cage underground. She has armed guards, and Frenchie says, right. I had a feeling about her. Mm-hmm. Says, no, you just didn't follow the plan, and you never follow the plan. And Frenchie tells him to unclench his and says Frenchie needs to eat his clenched. It's great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Butcher gets them back under control, telling them that the team is sniffing down a sandwich the size of Watergate.
And I like how we always have like that, or it's like the Moby Dick of all problems. These are always, I love their terminology. It's like, that's a really adequate way of putting it,
Yeah, that's a great way to characterize it. And he continues that Vought and the Soups are going to be looking for the girl. He finishes saying that they need to find her first. At this point, Huey gets a text message. He kind of acts surprised and starts fumbling with his phone, and Butcher notices this behavior and comes over to him. Butcher asks who it was, and Huey says, nobody. Butcher motions for Huey to hand him the phone, and when he looks at it, he confirms the text was from Starlight. Huey says they were supposed to go on a date, then explains for rather extensive time about how it's not a date. He's really going on about this, right? And Butcher tells him to call her back immediately and to tell her that he's going. Huey says, as a rule, I don't usually go out after a gory massacre.
It would be it would be hard. Not be thinking about what you've just seen all night when you're hanging, trying to act like everything's cool.
Yeah. Huey's quite witty, man. He is. Got some good one-liners.
He's growing quick in this show. He's been forced into a hard situation, and he's learning how to swim.
Yeah. Butcher wants Huey to plant a bug in her phone so they can listen to all her calls. Huey says she's not a bad person, and Butcher says she's a soup, just like the rest of them. That's a pretty black and white view of the Soups. Maybe
it is.
He hasn't seen one that's not completely corrupt yet.
And I guess, assuming what we see these guys do, that since they only deal with Soups that are trashy to begin with, I'm assuming that paints a picture for everyone, like a cop. Cop deals with people that are bad all day long. But there's some good folks in there, and I'm sure, but they've obviously had nothing but bad run-ins with the Soups.
Yeah. Yeah. So then maybe they're a little jaded.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, because Frenchie and MM don't seem to have much of a problem going along with this. I mean, it's like you mentioned soups and taking them down, and these guys are like, okay, sure.
Well, I mean, they've seen what they're capable of.
I think that's probably, yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm. And they must have their own grievances, like we talked about last episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Why else be involved in this?
Right.
Yeah. In the Vought Tower, Madeline is meeting the two marketing guys from the last episode. They are brainstorming how to deal with Translucent's absence. It is noted that they can't say he has died because this could affect the soups getting into the military. They're going to say he's on a secret classified mission fighting MS-13.
She gets excited by that one, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah. Madeline likes that idea.
She loves that one, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it MS-13 kind of, they're still, I'm assuming they're still around.
Oh, isn't that the biggest gang in the world?
Probably, I guess. I got no idea. Yeah. I don't pay much of a history, but I know that we're here we're in Texas, so we're in the state next to them. So
yeah.
I should know more, but hey, I don't. Sorry.
They're based out of El Salvador, I believe. I mean, at this point, they're spread all over the place. It was El Salvador, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, I guess that's the trendy bad guy.
Sure.
Yeah, they could have said cartels or something, but either way.
Yeah. It's real generic. I think cartels, I guess that's what I would have expected. Cartels.
Madeline gets a call and she acts surprised. Next, we see she is walking down the hall with Homelander and Maeve, and she's briefing them on the situation. 7 minutes ago, a transoceanic flight from Paris to Chicago was hijacked midair. Homelander questions how they know about it so quickly. Madeline tells him that she has a contact in NORAD. There are 3 hijackers based on the information they have so far. Maeve asks if they scrambled F-16s, specifically F-16s. Madeline confirms that 3 F-16s have been dispatched, but they can get there quicker, they being Homelander and Maeve.
Right.
I am kind of a U.S. military aircraft nerd. I grew up just obsessed with these things. I had books on them, I looked at pictures of them, go to air shows, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I want to know why she would think specifically that they would scramble F-16s in this situation.
For me, it just has to do with the genericness of a term. Oh, it's F-16 is more generic, and people tend to know that an F-16 is a fighter jet of some sort. I think we kind of lump all of our fighter jets into F-16s. I think as a civilian, that doesn't follow it as closely as you.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just out of curiosity, I was looking to see, could I find out what would typically be used to intercept something over the Atlantic? And I could not get a definitive answer. The last couple of articles I saw where interceptions did occur, an F-15 was used, and there was one with an F-22. I think that was only notable because it was the first time something had been intercepted by an F-22. But I think it really just depends on where you are in the world, what proximity it is, what they have available, right?
Yeah,
if it was a carrier-based situation, it would have been an F-18 or F-35 probably, right?
Okay.
Because they have carrier-based versions of those. That's what they operate of.
Okay.
So, but the F-16, to the credit of the writers, is one of the most numerous jets in the U.S. military. And to your point, you knew what it was. So maybe that's all it is.
I was going to say, I think it's just it's kind of like calling like most people know that an M16 is a machine gun. You know, it's kind of, we know an F-16 is a fighter jet. So I think it's just real genericness issue.
Yeah. I apologize for my obsessive compulsive nature on this comment.
I like that. I like that in that comment. My nephew I have a nephew that is very much into planes, and he probably makes you look very normal because he is very, very airplane nerdy, big time.
I don't know, man. My dad was an airplane mechanic, and we used to go watch airplanes take off at the airport and stuff. I mean, you know, maybe
he was trying to fly, but he takes some medications, and so they wouldn't let him get a license. So.
That's too bad.
Kind of hurt him. It does, because he loved the idea of it.
Yeah, that's really sad, man, when people can't chase their dreams, you know? Yeah. So, all right. Madeline tells them the aircraft is over international waters which opens the door for Vought to intervene since they won't be within a country's sovereign borders. The country would take issue with this if they try to do it over their land.
Yep.
Her plan is to have the Supes bring the passengers back alive, so the congressman will be forced to vote for the bill. She goes and stands very close to Homelander. She kind of backs up to him a little bit, and it's very close.
Very close.
Yeah. And she says, "This is our chance. More important than translucent, more important than anything." And she's really working him again.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
She's a master manipulator of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants her attention so bad. It makes it that much easier for her to manipulate him.
Oh, yeah. We go to Frenchie. He's meeting his companion who helped blow up his warehouse. She is delivering some type of gas to him to knock out the Japanese soup girl.
Did we ever mention the fact that I don't think we ever mentioned the fact that Frenchie's companion, the blind-ish acting whatever she is a very attractive woman. Let's just say it that way.
She's brunette and light eyes. Yeah.
I dig brunettes.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think for the brunettes.
Yeah.
So
this scene in particular is great. Yeah.
I love her.
He gets up to leave, thanking her. He says, "Thank you, pumpkin," or "Merci, pumpkin," I think is the
probably.
Yeah, what he said. She very aggressively grabs his wrist and tells him she misses him and that she got them a pied-à-terre, which means small apartment, and pulls his hand to her mouth and kisses it. She asks him when he will be coming by. He says as soon as he can and promises. She grabs his balls and begins to squeeze, finishing with, "Don't make me use that gas on you."
Yeah,
she got him on lockdown.
Yeah, she does.
She is scary.
She's scared, but man, Frenchie apparently likes dangerous women. As we will find out here with our little Japanese lady.
Yeah. I love how she just grabbed a hold of him and made it known what her expectations were.
Yeah. So. I kind of like her. I like her and she scares me. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a double whammy there. So
yeah.
Frenchie's apparently into that loving and being scared of her at the same time, I guess.
The police are taking the bodies out of the place where they were holding the Japanese girl. A-Train shows up and is surprised. The cops don't see him, and he takes off before they have a chance to notice that he's there. He was not expecting cops to be taking bodies out of this place.
Right.
Madeline is in her office on the phone, yelling at the contact she has at NORAD, asking for an update on when they will intercept the aircraft. And the Deep comes in. To his credit, he actually knocks, unlike Homelander. He asks if she has a second, and she tells him it's not really a good time, and he comes in anyway, saying he appreciates it and that it will be super quick. And she's just like, okay. She tries to protest, but she gives up and when he goes into her office and sits down in front of her desk. He goes on to tell her that he's found a mission and that it's really important, and he would like to do it with her permission. She's like, trying to get him out of there as quickly as possible. She's like,
yes.
What and where the mission is. She's being very short and aggressive with him. Obviously, she's preoccupied and she doesn't want to have to think about this. No. She probably. My question to you is, do you think she just normally acts like this with him, or is it specifically because she's dealing with the more important situation?
It's probably both. I'm assuming that he has lesser handlers. She deals with Homelander, and Homelander is like a full-time gig for her, I would think. And I know she does some of the other handling. Well, because didn't we just say that she is the VP of soups or something like that? Soup management?
Senior VP of soup management.
Soup management. So she may have something to do with them more than I think, but I'm sure there's people that do things like her for, lower down the food chain that handle him. I don't think it'd be too hard to handle that old fella.
Okay.
They paint a real simplistic picture of the Deep, poor guy.
Yeah.
I think if you dangled a thing of string in front of him, he'd probably be entertained.
Maybe a fish hook.
Maybe a fish hook. Something shiny.
The Deep answers her question. He says, "Ocean land."
Ocean land. I love it. It's like a man with a mission.
And as a quick reminder, we have seen a billboard for Ocean land with the Deep on it before.
Yes.
Yeah. He continues telling her the dolphins there are really underfed and abused. They're really frustrated. And he wants to shine a light on it and thinks people would really respond to that. I guess he has no concept of marketing or public perception. Do you think they're trying to play him off as just like an idiot? You know, he's like good looking, but he's dumb.
Well, when you first meet him, he comes across sharper. But the more that we become involved with him, he is just dumb.
Yeah, I
You're
mean, it's
right.
just
He's
like
as dumb as
anything
a
else,
sack
right?
of rocks, dude.
They come in, they're shiny, like you said,
Right.
and new, and then you just peel away the layers of the onion, and you're left
Yeah.
with the core, which is rotten, or in this case, dumb and
Or
rotten,
obsessed
based
with
on what he did.
dolphins,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah.
I get it. If you speak their language and no other human does, I mean, I don't know what else. I guess I'd probably be obsessed too. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Madeline reminds the Deep that he is at the centerpiece of the Oceanland Fall marketing campaign. And the Deep goes, yeah, sure. We could just bail on that, right? The deal sucks anyway. And she's like, no, we cannot back out of that deal. What do you think the legal ramifications of backing out of that deal would be?
I am assuming that this is a multi-billion with a B deal here. And so I'm assuming the legal ramifications are exceedingly steep. Especially because I'm assuming that contract is written in favor of Vought in particular.
Likely, yeah.
But it would make them look bad. And this is all about, we talk about butt and we talk about certain things. It's all about perception. And a company like Vought, we don't want to have any, especially you don't want to look negative on a family-friendly, a place that's a family destination. We got these guys endorsing them. You got the sevens behind him in the Deep, and then this guy's going to be this. He's just that stupid. He really is apparently that dumb.
Well, he tells her he'd like to do something with a little more substance. She says, okay, I hear you. What do we say about that?
It's a very parental
people
saying,
management.
I hear you.
Yep.
Right. I hear you.
Madeline is walking him out of the office. She's trying to get him out so she can deal with the other situation. As he steps in the hall, she says, Deep, play to your strengths. And this is the critical error on her part. His perception of his strengths are probably radically different than anything she's got in mind for him.
Oh.
Her mind is diving off of boats and flashing your biceps for Instagram. It's not about what he's thinking about.
Oh, no. No, it is most assuredly not what. But what's funny is that because we know the episode, we know exactly what he's thinking. He's been given a green light.
In his
he's
mind.
Been given the green light in his mind.
The mission is a go.
We're good to go.
Yeah. A-Train shows up to Pop Claw's apartment. And we can tell before she opens the door, she's being torn up with anxiety.
Yes. It's very visible.
When A-Train comes in, she greets him with warmth, and he is acting very emotionally detached. He doesn't say hi to her or anything. He's kind of walking slow. Face is very passive, and the first thing he says to her is, what did you do? She tries to play it like she doesn't know what he's talking about. He continues that she is the only other person that knew that he had the Compound V and where he was taking it. Again, she denies telling anyone. He gets aggravated and starts yelling and cursing at her. She backs up and she's hurt, and she tells him not to yell at her. He tells her to sit down. They both sit down on her bed, and he goes on to tell her that he loves her, and he has since the first time they met. And she questions this. She says she heard what he said at the press conference after the race with Shockwave, that he has no girlfriend, he's open to offers, and his excuse is, Vought makes me do it. And that's part of his brand. Right. You think that's true?
There may be some truth in that. We've, I bring up in notes things that you and I have read together about Dune in particular, where Leto, the Duke, has to have that appearance of being open, for certain things. And so I'm guessing as a brand, it would be good to appear that it's like he's available, because maybe he has a big demographic with women or something like that, who, part of that demographic is his availableness,
like the athlete,
right?
The single athlete.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. He gives her a hug and goes on about how he took care of her when she had a relapse into using drugs. He said something about like cleaning up her puke and rubbing her back, and that he's always there for her. Then again, He asks her who she told because they're in really big trouble. And she holds fast with the lie. And he shakes his head, disappointed. He gets up and he stands with his back to her for a moment, thinking. It's pretty tense.
Yeah.
He tells her either way, she needs to pack a bag so they can leave.
Yeah, in this kind of stuff, do you feel a little bad for her?
This whole relationship seems abusive to me. Like
It
he's
does.
using her. I
Very
don't
much.
get genuine love and care from him towards her.
Not at all. Not at
She
all.
seems a little bit desperate for his attention. He just is withholding it, it seems. He just
Yes.
goes there as an act of convenience.
Right. I
I
agree.
think.
I think you're right. Cool.
Yeah. He assures her he's going to take care of this, but he has to get her somewhere safe before Homelander finds out. She tells him she loves him, and he looks at her for a moment too long, I think. Then he says he loves her too, but it's not legit.
I think there is a love there, but it's because he himself at this moment is becoming a junkie again, or has stopped, or is in the process of being. I'm not, it's, we don't know if this is an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
We know he was out in V when he ran through Huey's woman.
Yes.
So, I mean, other than that, this is becoming a problem for him. So I'm not sure if this is your typical addict kind of, like I said, as he's becoming a junkie and just, I've got my act together, but you don't, and not realizing that everyone can see he doesn't have his act together.
This is a very good point, because if he's worried about his source of compound V being compromised in any way,
right,
and he has the addict mindset and he's worried about losing it, I could see your point. And she's threatening that potentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because he's only, I think he's only concerned with that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Image, because this is what we again, back to image.
Yeah. There was that picture of them. They looked pretty happy on her desktop, on her computer. So maybe I think you're right here. Yeah.
At some time it was something.
Yeah.
Better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're now taken to a beauty salon. It's a really nice place.
Yes, it is.
Chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. They got white tiles on the floor, art on the walls. The Japanese soup girl walks in. She's barefoot. She's leaving bloody footprints in her wake. The women in the shop begin to freak out. The girl walks to the back where a woman, presumably the owner, is counting money in her office.
Now, and part of me loves this scene because I feel like we're probably in my town of Kerrville, because in this small town here where I live, Comron, I have never seen more nail salons per capita in a small town than this place. There's 10 nail salons in a mile radius of my house. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. I've counted them. And they keep popping
isn't
up.
That the Napa Valley of Texas?
Fredericksburg is.
Okay.
We are 25 miles from the Napa Valley of Texas, yes, of the South. So, yes.
Well, they got to get their nails done somewhere.
Well, apparently a lot of people come to this town as a destination, but Fredericksburg has eclipsed us, which is good for me because I like living in this town and having all the tourists in Fredericksburg are not here.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. The girl does what she did to her captors to this woman.
Yeah.
Slashes her bad. Now, this whole scenario strikes me as one of those human trafficking type scenarios because I've seen a bunch of stories about indentured servitude and human trafficking with the nail salons in particular.
It's funny that I had marked down here that I'm not familiar with the nail salon side. Here in Texas, part of the problem was we had some of these supermercados. That's like the supermarket that has been tied into some trafficking here in Texas. With our all the Mexican states to the south. But apparently it's real. Apparently I did not realize how much of a hotbed Texas has become in human trafficking.
Oh yeah, Houston's supposed to be really bad.
Houston is bad. Garland has grown in a per capita rate where it's apparently growing very bad, and because we're able to trap these young kids, and these kids are going home at night. and then they're going out and basically being prostitutes. It's really scary to think about.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah. Sad situation
No.
for sure. Yeah. We are taken to a bowling alley where Huey is on his date with Starlight. There is a commercial on the TV with the Deep talking up the hilarious Dolphins Ahoy extravaganza at Oceanland.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, in the first episode, when we see all the soup stuff in Times Square, I think we see the Deep affiliated with this Oceanland place.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier in this episode today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
that's all right. I had a reminder of we saw that billboard,
Okay.
and that was the exact scene when they're in Times Square. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Starlight is up bowling, and when she releases her bowling ball, it's not a smooth release. And it kind of, she does one of those ones where she releases it too late and it launches up and lands half. I've done this,
Right.
you know,
Sure.
lands halfway through and then goes into the gutter. Now, I have a confession to make here. I'm writing my notes up for this episode, and I'm trying to find the verb for releasing the ball. Like, what is the act of bowling? And then I asked my wife later, and she's like, "It's bowling."
That's amazing.
And I was like, "Oh."
That's a brilliant answer. She just looked at you and just go, "Yes, honey, it's called bowling."
My mind literally exploded. I was like, "Oh, that's great.
My Lord, that's awesome."
I'm like, release, throw.
But no, is that technically? And now you bring up a different point. Is the releasing of the ball in bowling? Is that the act of bowling?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Far out. Live and learn.
I mean, it's literally in the title of the activity.
All right. Far out.
Yeah.
We're educational too, folks.
While Starlight's bowling, maybe that's another T-shirt.
The act of releasing the ball. Okay. I'm so sorry. Oh, goodness.
I'm trying to think of like a ball release T-shirt now.
Right, I know it. That combined with the menacing massage.
Yeah. We're gonna have great T-shirts. It's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
While Starlight is bowling, Huey is eyeballing her phone because his mission is to bug the phone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, she left this back where the seats are in the bowling lane. He doesn't do it at this point, though. Huey asks her if she's bowled before. She tells him, yeah, she's just a bit rusty. She asks, what about him? And Huey tells her he has bowled his whole life. He even had his first kiss with a girl in the men's restroom at this place that they're in when he was 14. Starlight thinks she is sure that's how the girl pictured her first kiss. And she's being sarcastic,
yes,
of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Huey asks Starlight about her first kiss. And she says it was at her prom and it was amazing. And Huey is kind of surprised. He's like, your senior prom when you were 18? And she confirms. And then she says she had a very Jesus-centric childhood.
Right.
Got to maintain that chastity.
Right.
Yep. Their conversation is interrupted.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I mean, you are allowed to laugh at that. Their conversation is interrupted when someone gets a strike and the noise triggers PTSD in Huey. He envisions pulling the trigger and the explosion from Translucent, the gore, all of it.
Yeah.
Starlight is talking the whole time he's frozen and spaced out. And when he snaps out of it, he asks her to repeat herself. And she says, it's nothing. It's stupid. Huey makes an attempt at bowling, then turns around and asks her what Translucent is like. She's kind of surprised, thinking that's a strange turn in the conversation. And he tries to justify it, saying Translucent was his hero as a kid and it just popped in his head. And he says, Starlight has told him the other soups are dicks. Is Translucent a dick too? And she rather nicely, I think, says he's not great at privacy or boundaries. That's a nice way of saying it, right? Yeah. Other than that, he's kind of a loner and he spends most of his free time with his son, who's about 10 years old.
Now, I'm a little with this revelation, I'm with you on the fact that, of course, this is not what Huey needs to hear, but the idea of the son, do you ever think about the fact that maybe he was pretending to be on missions and instead hanging out with his son? Who would know?
That's a good point.
You know, maybe he's not as completely reprehensible as we think. We know he's pretty reprehensible, but maybe he's not as bad as we've been thinking. Through and through, at least.
I mean, did we ever actually see him? Okay, the way he came at Huey in the electronics store was super aggressive.
Yes.
Super aggressive. I mean, he was literally going to smash a TV on his head. That, to me, did we see any other indication outside of his creepiness of being in the bathroom and stuff of any type of?
Well, he saw him drop the bug.
Yeah.
And so, that, of course, translucent in his mind, and that I feel it thinks he is in the right at that point because somebody's trying to do something to his, quote unquote family, of the seven, or maybe in his mind, maybe he's
killing him.
Well, I don't know if he's going to kill him or just beat him up real bad. Put him in the hospital.
Dude, you drop a TV on somebody's head like that, they're going to die.
Okay.
Well, it's a 55-inch TV.
Yeah, it is.
No, I mean, like, just the weight of it. It's a bludgeoning object, I mean,
well, I moved. It's funny because I have a 65-inch television. I moved that was so light compared to I used to have a 32-inch CRT, one of those old ones that weighed about 250 pounds.
Oh yeah.
That would kill about a family versus mine. Yeah, that might kill me by itself, I guess.
Yeah, I had a 36-inch Sony. That thing was 240 pounds. Yeah, and all the weight was on the front, so it was really difficult to move. But the back was huge, so you had all this weight on the front, but you had to hold the back still.
Yes,
there's no good way to move those things.
No, they were terrible, dude.
But the picture on them was great.
I'll tell you about the most satisfying thing that happened to me when I was moving. I got to throw two of those into a dumpster, not a dumpster, but at a dump. It's about a 20-foot drop down to concrete.
And they imploded.
Oh, quite exciting.
Yeah,
very, very entertaining.
Yeah. When Huey realizes that Translucent had a kid, he begins to hyperventilate a bit. He did not need to hear that. You're right.
No.
All right. Now, this scene in particular is difficult. It is difficult. Really intense to watch. Just a warning, if you're listening still and this kind of stuff bothers you, there's going to be some bad stuff here.
Yep. And this is not a family-friendly show.
Yeah. We're taken to the airplane that is over the Atlantic that's been hijacked. The terrorists are walking around the plane, randomly threatening people who are already in their seats, yelling. The people don't speak their language, but they're still yelling at them. So the caricature of a terrorist, right?
Yes, absolutely.
One of the terrorists is talking to one of the passengers when the emergency exit door opens, which I don't think is technically possible. Like the latch literally opens while the airplane's in flight. I'm sure that thing, because he's opening it from the outside. But either way, suspension of disbelief.
He's Homelander. He can do what he wants.
Yeah. The door opens, the cabin begins to depressurize, and the terrorist that was talking to somebody is immediately sucked out of the door. Maeve comes through the door, grabs the second terrorist, lifting him by the neck, breaking it, and then throws his body to the side. Now, the last terrorist is ahead of Maeve in the plane, and he's closer to the cockpit. He's walking towards her with his hands up, and then we see two high energy beams pierce his chest and kill him. Homelander closes the emergency exit behind him and begins to assure everyone that everything is going to be fine, that they're all safe. And just as a reminder, their intel was there are 3 terrorists on this airplane.
Three terrorists. It's been repeated.
Right. The passengers all start clapping. People start thanking him. And he goes into his marketing mode and he gets the passengers to clap for Maeve. Give it up for Maeve. Right. And Maeve has gone to the cockpit and she's knocking. There's no answer. She breaks through the door. And that's a testament to her strength because those doors are pretty robust nowadays, right?
Well, dude, this woman, she got hit by an armored car and didn't move.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Yeah. There is a final terrorist in the cockpit, and he has a gun to the captain's head.
Next to the dead captain.
The co-pilot, his throat's been, and then the captain is still alive. But here's the thing. If these soups had proper training. I mean, hell, Homelander has X-ray vision.
Got
He could
X-ray
have
vision.
X-rayed the damn airplane and seen that there were more than 3 terrorists, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they should not be in this situation because they're not trained to handle it, right?
Yes.
They're just kind of cowboying it. So that's
Total cowboy move on that one.
yeah, they just rush into the situation and then it's hubris, really, I think,
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
Well,
So
they just assumed it was over. We got here where we won,
mhm,
and not realizing that there was still a player in the game.
right. Well, I just feel that they could have gathered a little bit more intel
I
first.
do agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
They try to talk this terrorist down, but he just shoots the captain. And then Homelander immediately lasers him along with all of the controls in the cockpit. Just like right across.
He just scythes right through him, dude.
Yeah. The windows are ruptured in the cockpit as well. So, it's windy in there. They're going really fast. So I don't even know how they're able to talk to each other. But
Right.
set that aside. Maeve puts on the pilot's headset and attempts to contact air traffic control. Comms are dead, damaged by Homelander. Maeve asks Homelander, can you fly a plane? And he says it wouldn't matter if he could, and he points at all the damage he caused. And then Maeve's like, what are we going to do? Homelander turns around, goes into the passenger cabin, and he tells the passengers to remain calm. And Maeve has gotten up and followed him, and she's telling him that he needs to go outside and lift the nose of the plane up. He says he can't since there's nothing to stand on.
Right.
Maeve gives him a bunch of ways he could try and help, but he's just like finding a reason not to in every single case, just not even willing to try, right?
No, he's not.
And this is really the difference between these soups. I mean, Maeve, to her credit, is trying to do the right thing here, but
She is.
Homelander, he's not a true hero, right?
He is
Superman would move heaven and earth to save this airplane. In fact,
Absolutely.
he does at the beginning of Superman Returns. This exact scenario. The airplane's crashing and he manages to do it. Now, it may be not a direct comparison because to Homelander's point, it would appear that he cannot just push against the plane to keep it up.
If he flew at this thing, all he's going to do is fly through it.
Right.
So I get where he's coming from, and I know Superman, but Homelander are supposed to be our equivalent, and he probably has the strength to do it if it can be done, but an airplane, there's no desire, and also an aircraft that is built like that is not designed to be held by a single pressure point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
So he would punch through anything he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he could be cool about it, though. He is a jerk.
Yeah. I mean, he's just not willing to even entertain any ideas.
Nope.
He's not even thinking about it. He's just finding reasons not to.
Yes.
This behavior just kind of makes me wonder of how many of the issues with the Seven are related to Homelander being the leader. Because a leader affects the people that follow him or her. True. Right?
Correct.
Their attitude, it's lead by example, right? If you see somebody in front of you slacking, or you see somebody not upholding a standard that's above you, it filters down through everybody below, right?
Right.
What do you think? Do you agree with that? You think Homelander is the cause of a lot of this bad behavior, or you think
I think a lot of it could be at Homelander's feet to some extent, but the problem is that the Seven is sold as a group. We're never shown them as a real group of heroes. Mm-hmm. They're marketed this way. And so I think, there is a perception that there is this group that, well, there's no group, it's just a group of individuals who are members of this group of the Seven. And so Homelander is not really leading. I think I'm assuming all direction comes from Floor 82. Mm-hmm. Mr. Edgar, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm assuming Mr. Fring does what he wants to do, and we're going to say yes, sir, to Mr. Edgar. So,
right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure where to point the leadership finger, because the Justice League doesn't answer. They may answer to senators and Congress and oversight, but it's not a company.
Right.
This is what makes this such a different scenario. this is like a private company who's now talking about becoming a private security company and a private military contractor, actually,
Mm-hmm.
is what we're looking to gain.
Yeah.
So, but that's, and I think, and I did have a note about some of the stuff we're talking about when we're talking about this training about some of these things, because all they ever do is have an itinerary for everything. They never actually stop anything when forced into stopping something for real. Homelander is so arrogant. He just thinks he's got it and completely fumbles it, but doesn't care because I think he's already got his plan. He's kind of crazy, dude. He's crazy like a fox.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that. I mean, we'll have to circle back to that at the end of the episode. Yeah. The plane jerks erratically, causing the oxygen bags to deploy, and one of the passengers flies up and hits the ceiling. Homelander is still telling the passengers everything's fine, and they're kind of getting worried now, starting to scream a little bit. Maeve is now asking Homelander to take everyone one by one and fly them to the ground. He scoffs, laughing, and says, "What, come back 123 times? Maeve, think. We're done here." She pleads for him to try and help.
This is a hard scene, dude.
Right here is where it really starts getting bad, right?
It is.
Homelander's making his way to the back of the plane, and passengers start to realize he may be leaving them. He assures them he's just going to check on something in the back of the plane. A girl asks Homelander if he's going to save them, and he assures them that he's going to, right?
Yep.
Homelander calls to Maeve when he's at the back of the plane, and she's really having a tough time with the scenario. She feels trapped. She has no power here.
Yes.
On her way to the back, she has the girl who spoke with Homelander and her mom take off their masks, and she guides them to the back of the plane with her. Maeve tells Homelander to just take these two. He says, "What, so they can tell the world we left everyone to die?" He has, at this point, abandoned all pretense that he's going to save anyone now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The other passengers start to rush them at the back in a blind panic. And Homelander, this is where he starts getting really scary. He gets his eyes start to glow, and he starts yelling at them and threatening them to get back, or he'll cut them down.
And he can do it. He's already done it 2 or 3. He did it twice.
Yeah. The girl and her mom are begging Maeve not to leave them. Homelander holds out his hand and tells Maeve not to die with them. Now, the mom is begging Maeve to only take the daughter. Homelander and Maeve exit the plane and hover in place, watching the plane go off in the distance. We can see someone jump out the door, attempting to save themselves as it's going off in the distance. And then Maeve has no choice but to sit there and watch as the plane crashes into the water and disintegrates. And it's a really tough scene to watch. I mean, particularly the part, the mom begging for them to just save her kid.
Well, just think about it. I mean, these guys show up for a hot second there. It looks like, dude, the cavalry's arrived. It's all going to be great. It's turned around, and these saviors have turned into they're the executioners, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And Maeve is, I feel really bad for Maeve, but Homelander, I think, is at this point realizes what the plan is going to be. Unfortunately, he's kind of right. If you don't, for what he's going to have happen. But I mean, can you imagine that? You think that you're saving your child? At least get my kid out of here. I can die happy knowing that my kid is safe. And to have these people turn their back on you, can you imagine that before you die?
I don't know, man. Like, it's hard for me to put myself emotionally in that spot, where I have to, as a parent,
it's rough, dude.
Yeah. Either way, that really, it really was tough for me.
I get it.
That part, yeah. The show takes us back to the nail salon. The police have shown up to deal with the murdered salon owner. Butcher, Frenchie, and MM walk in. Butcher tells the officer by the door he's from Homicide and flashes a badge. The officer asks him, "What's up with your accent?" And Butcher says, "What's up with yours?"
Great.
Because the cop had a really strong New York accent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great comeback. MM is questioning one of the salon technicians, and he is fluently speaking another language. And I couldn't really tell what it was.
I assume, for some reason, I'm assuming Chinese,
Mm.
because I think Chinese is probably the most known Asian language, probably Mandarin or something like that, isn't it? One of the most spoken.
I'm not sure which is the most prominent of the
Okay.
Chinese
But I think it's
dialects.
I think one of those Chinese dialects is probably because of the sheer number of people, one of the bigger dialects. So I think he's
Yeah.
speaking Chinese, I think.
Yeah. What's interesting is here, Vietnamese is the more common nail salon
Oh, I didn't even think about
owner.
that. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not Vietnamese for sure.
Right.
My suspicion was Filipino, maybe, because it
Well,
kind of sounded
yeah,
Spanish a little bit, but
it could be.
I don't know. Either way, it wasn't enough for me to even try and figure out what it was.
No.
Is that the correct term? Nail specialist,
How about nail associate?
nail associate, salon technician.
Salon technician sounds really formal and good. I think I like the salon technician. Let us know in the comments, folks.
Butcher is looking at the remains of the salon owner, and it basically looks like a bag that is filled with blood and meat that burst.
It does.
Thank you to Translucent for describing that for us.
It's pretty true.
Yep. A cop walks up to Butcher, offering him a cup of coffee and telling him it's a gang hit.
I love that one, dude. It's a gang hit. It's like, really?
Butcher wants to know who told him that, and the cop points to the end of the hallway where A-Train is standing and says he's not arguing with him. MM turns around and sees A-Train, then he immediately turns to the front of the shop to leave the scene. Frenchie is looking at a color-coordinated wall of nail polish and finds the blue section. The bottle of nail polish he found in the girl's cell fits perfectly in a spot within the blue section that has a missing bottle.
Mm-hmm. Same brand and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Outside, MM is speaking to Butcher about how A-Train just saw him a week ago, and he's concerned he could have been recognized. Butcher assures MM he wasn't even seen. MM counters saying it's easy for Butcher to say that, but MM has people he's responsible for. And Butcher says, "Oh, and I don't." He continues that Vought doesn't send a soup in to perform a gang hit. A-Train is just there looking for the girl, just like they are. Frenchie asks about who the owner of the shop was. MM tells them she was smuggling in women from all over the Pacific.
It's a lot of different people over there in the Pacific, a lot of different islands.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Or on mainland as well, right?
Right.
A-Train comes out of the shop and speeds off. Butcher says A-Train can cover all of Manhattan in 30 minutes and that he'll find the girl before they do. Frenchie says he won't because he knows where she's going. He shows them the train ticket he found and says she's working her way backwards trying to get home.
Right.
We go back to the bowling alley. There's a commercial on TV with Ezekiel telling people to join him at the Believe Expo. A couple of bullet points here. It's sponsored by Samaritan's Embrace.
No.
They'll have music, worship, food trucks. Oh, and Christ.
I'm sorry. Christ should have been listed first. I'm sorry. I'm a Christian. You should list Christ first.
I mean, he does have
that's how they did it. But I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Worship is number 2.
Worship is number 2.
Mm-hmm. So,
but we have to have that center of our center of worship as a Christian would be Christ. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. They'll be featuring, food trucks.
Food trucks.
I mean,
food trucks were listed before Jesus. That's not very good. Come on.
Maybe they have bread on them.
Wow. Easy.
This reminds me of. So
am I going to have to have a blasphemy warning?
Maybe. Okay, so there's a series of books called Caverns and Creatures, which it's based on a group of individuals that work in a fried chicken restaurant in Mississippi, I believe. And they're playing the equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons, and they need a dungeon master. So they get one.
I have one of your books. You told me to buy one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Critical fail or something like that?
Yeah, critical failures. Yeah. And so this guy shows up. They found him in some online ad or something, and he's your biggest neck beard you can imagine. They're trolling this guy left and right. And so the guy gets out some special dice. When they use them, they're transported into the world of the game that this guy created as their characters. And the rules of Caverns and Creatures, which is the equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons in this series, apply. Now, eventually, I think it's at the end of the second book. Spoilers for this if you're gonna read these books, but it's hilarious. This one guy, he comes in, he's a paladin. He invented Jesus Christ as a god in this universe.
Okay.
Because he worships Jesus Christ, and so by his belief, Jesus becomes a god in this world. Now, where this goes wrong is he was proselytizing Jesus and explaining it to the local NPCs in the game. And he said his body was made of bread.
Okay.
And what was the other thing?
Uh-oh. Wine? Blood?
Wine for blood, right? And so at the end battle, he summons the avatar of his god into the game. And it's like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and his body is made with bread and literally has blood made of wine. I can't remember what happens, but like basically, I think it starts raining bread from the sky. I don't remember what happens to the avatar, but when I made the food truck thing, I was like, well, I mean, there's some bread involved. Either way, that's what came to my mind. So I don't know. The series is funny. I recommend it.
Is it as funny as Hitchhiker's Guide? Did you ever read Hitchhiker's?
I've never read that.
You've never read The Hitchhikers?
No,
Dude,
I have not.
That's one of the first most eyeball in the throat of literature of making fun of people and of everything, and it's one of the greatest sci-fi fantasies, I think. It's extremely blasphemous, but my word, it's hilarious. Douglas Adams was hilarious.
Okay.
Great characters. It's some of the funniest characters I think you'll ever find, especially the president is Zaphod Beeblebrox.
I think I kind of remember that from the movie.
Well, the idea of the president of the galaxy is that he does such crazy things that no one is really aware of what the government's really doing. He just runs around being a criminal, distracting everybody, and so he's a great president. So,
yeah, that's cool. All right, enough of my little deviation here. So
we did deviate hard. Sorry.
Yeah. The commercial continues. Homelander and Starlight will be at the Believe Expo.
Nice.
Huey starts chuckling, and Starlight says, I know. She goes on to say she's not trying to convert the masses. She's just doing a panel for teens. She's also donating her appearance fee to some nonprofit called the Covenant House, which is actually a real nonprofit that helps homeless teens, apparently.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay. Huey tells her she's the nicest person in the city, going on to say that everyone else can F off and go home. She says that's why she does it. Vindictive personal glory. She's being sarcastic again, of course.
Yep. Yeah. She's really funny. I like her.
Yeah. Their chemistry is pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. They share a look for a moment. Then she asks if he's okay, and he assures her that he is. She can tell something is up with him, but she can't really put a finger on it.
Right.
Because he has been acting kind of off and on weird with his little PTSD things, or I'm sure he's nervous about having a bug her phone as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. She bowls again.
Right.
And the ball goes in the gutter. Huey collects himself and he tells her he is suspicious of her. She's a little surprised. He goes on to say that she told him she had bowled a lot, yet she is remarkably at bowling. He thinks she is sandbagging to not show him up on their first date and asks her if she's going to stop stroking his ego and show him what she's really got. Now, she picks up her ball, and then you can hear kind of the humming from when she activates her powers, and then she launches this thing. It gets a strike immediately, and he's just like, holy
Does the ball even hit the ground? Is it just does she just throw it down there?
I mean, it just made a beeline. I don't even know, but it hit with authority.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Yeah, he just says, holy and she just shrugs. We go back to Butcher and company. They're at the train station. He's on the phone with somebody, and then he gets off the phone, and Butcher asks for details. Goes into this whole deal about he had a friend named Deshaun from when he was growing up. They grew up together on the same block, and now he delivers packages. And Butcher's like, that's not the part I'm interested in. kind of response.
Right.
Continues telling him Deshaun looked up the tracking number from the box that had compound V in it. They found the box in the basement where the girl was being held. It's from Samaritan's Embrace.
Right.
Butcher says, and I quote, "What does that Jesus-thumping elastic bastard have to do with it?" Thinks if they find the soup girl, they could find out. Butcher splits them up so they can search the train station more effectively. They're looking for the girl. On the TV, a news reporter is reporting on the hijacking, saying that authorities have lost all contact with the transatlantic flight. Butcher catches this broadcast, so he knows about that situation now. Right. Frenchie is walking around, and he hears some music that catches his attention. He recognizes the music video playing in a shop, and it's the same band that had the music video in the girl's cell earlier. I don't think it's the same song.
K-pop looking stuff is very crazy looking, strange young men singing and weird videos.
K-pop's Korean. This girl's Japanese.
I understand that, but I don't know. Does it look similar to that? Very just kind of, because it looks, those videos are outrageously, they're kind of funny looking a lot.
I don't know, because some of the K-pop stuff that I've kind of passingly seen, it's more like NSYNC or but I'm not really that into it, so I don't know.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
You may have to become an authority because you are.
I've done research on plenty of other obscure things. Why didn't I dive into this one? That's a flaw. Outright bias. I will resolve this the next time.
I'm just kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's drawn to this shop because he recognizes this music video, which I cannot definitively say is K-pop or J-pop because I didn't do the research. I apologize. And he sneaks to the back of the shop and texts Butcher to come because he suspects she's in the area.
Ooh.
He's looking around and he finds the girl hiding under a table. He begins talking to her, and she's extremely on edge, ready to defend herself or attack at any moment.
Yep.
He tells her a story, and this is a pretty heart-wrenching story.
He freaks you with his crazy stories, dude.
He had a rough childhood, man.
Dude.
Yeah. So this story is about how his father stole him from his mother and kept him from his mother for years, going from hotel to hotel. He'd take Frenchie out for a walk every couple of nights. He would smoke a cigarette, tell him that he loved him, and then burn him with the butt. And he shows her, he pulls up his pants leg and he shows her these scars he's got on his leg. It's really messed up.
Yeah, it's messed up, dude.
Yeah. He continues that he tried to run away so many times so he could get back to his mom, but every time he did, his dad would find him. And he's beginning to tear up as he's talking to her, and she's becoming a little bit more relaxed with this show of emotion. I don't think she can verbally understand what he's saying, but she can see through his emotions that he doesn't mean her harm. Yeah. He tells her that he knows her secret. She's just a scared one. So he holds his hand out to her and tells her to let him help her. She's thinking about it, and the TV changes channels for some reason, and it changes from the K-pop or J-pop or whatever it is.
There's something pop.
Yep.
The asterisk dot pop.
Yeah. There we go. There's your next t-shirt idea. Asterisk pop. Yeah. And then she freaks out when the channel changes. I'm not sure why it changed. It just did. She goes running. She flips the table over and just takes off out of the shop. Butcher and show up as Frenchie's running out of the shop. They're asking if he saw her, and he says he doesn't know where she went. He's very distraught. Asks if he tried to gas her, and Frenchie says no, he didn't think it was right. Again accuses Frenchie of going off plan. We go back to Huey and Starlight. They're still in the bowling alley. She's telling a story about some guy that she had a crush on in high school. They went to a party and somebody shoved her date, then hit him. She kicked the guy's and her date thanked her by never speaking to her again. Now, do you think this guy was more intimidated by this display of strength, or was it a matter of pride on his part?
You know what? It's probably both.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got to be emasculating to have the date beat up a guy who hit you. You know, it's got to be very hard to take, even though she means well by it. But it's pride, and it's also and if she can do that, that is kind of scary.
Would you be intimidated by that?
Am I weird to say think I'd be kind of turned on by that?
I mean, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay,
I mean,
but I guess me and you are in agreement. It's like I'm kind of turned on by that. So
yeah.
I think a girl would do that for me. That's kind of cool, dude.
Yeah. So
right.
Starlight continues that this was when she learned to never show her strength to a boy she liked. Huey tells her the guy had a small baby. She asks him if it bothers him that she can beat him in bowling and in everything, really, and that she could bench press him. And then he asks her if that's a threat or a promise.
See, I love Huey for this because I feel the same way. It's like, okay, dude, bring it. I want you to bench press me. It's like, please.
Yeah.
Please.
He tells her he thinks it's awesome, the real her. Suddenly, he sees his girlfriend standing there, staring at him. He starts hallucinating again.
Oh.
Starlight goes off to the restroom to clean some ketchup off her face that Huey pointed out to her. When he snaps out of his hallucination, he sees she left her phone on the table, and he gets out this black box device and sets it next to her phone, and it somehow immediately detects that the phone is there and hacks into it and puts a bug in it.
I want that one.
Must be some super secret CIA tech.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you ever noticed that everybody has a Sony cell phone in this show?
I have not, but I'm just assuming they're either a huge sponsor, though.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's
that's great.
Product placement. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Back to Butcher and company. They're still looking for the girl. And this conversation right here is very important, I feel.
Yes.
You agree with this?
I do.
Okay. MM and Frenchie are really getting into it about Frenchie not following the plan. MM is telling Frenchie that they had her, but he lost her, and they were supposed to follow orders. They're professionals, and they count on each other. He continues saying that Frenchie is on some flaky bohemian drug and that even Huey, who is a white Urkel, is more professional than Frenchie. Frenchie tells MM that he understands it's hard for someone who is anally OCD to understand. MM asks Frenchie to help him understand what happened that night that Mallory had Frenchie tail lamplighter. Now, you've alluded to this situation in the past.
Yes.
Frenchie tries to say that's enough and end the conversation. MM continues pushing, saying Mallory was their boss and they had orders. Frenchie was supposed to follow Lamplighter, but he let him go. Frenchie says he didn't know. MM continues saying Lamplighter went and torched Mallory's grandkids. And there you have it.
Yep.
This is the core of the issue between these two.
Yes.
Frenchie more emphatically says he didn't know. MM says it doesn't matter. He didn't follow the orders and it cost some lives. This causes them to start punching each other. Frenchie throws the first punch. Butcher comes in and separates them. MM says, F this and F you, I'm done. He begins to walk off and Butcher calls him back.
Now, speaking of management skills,
mm-hmm.
I love Billy Butcher's management skills here.
Yeah, it's great. MM comes back and says Butcher told him it would be different this time. But Frenchie is up to the same old and they're going to end up like Mallory. He tries to leave again. Frenchie is trying to get Butcher to go the other direction to follow the girl. Butcher calls them both back. He asks MM, what is Sporty Spice up to? MM says,
I'm embarrassed to say that I now have looked up Scary Spice because of this article and this conversation.
Okay.
And did not realize that Scary Spice and Eddie Murphy have a child together.
I did not know that either.
Isn't that trippy? There you go.
Interesting. MM says he doesn't know. Butcher asks, what about Posh? Frenchie says, I don't understand. Butcher tells them she's making clothes for anorexics. Not exactly a growth market. Jeez.
No, it's not. All right.
And Baby Spice is doing fall, not even on page 6 of the Daily Mail. I should have looked up what page 6 is. It must be the gossip column or something.
I'm assuming that.
Yeah.
Probably so.
And Scary Spice is up to her eyeballs in lawsuits and sex tapes.
That is why I looked up Scary Spice.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Ginger Spice has released 3 albums, and they'll all make your ears bleed. He brings it all together. When they're apart, they're all absolute rubbish. But together, they're the effing Spice Girls.
All right.
Frenchie kind of smiles a little bit.
Go Spice Girls.
MM just looks at him for a minute, and he goes, "Why do you know so much about the Spice Girls?" Butcher tells him the point is that we are all by ourselves and that we need each other. We need each other or we're dead in the water. He continues that they can beat the out of each other. He really doesn't care, but it's not going to change the past. And he finishes with, and I quote, "What do you say? We go find that dirty little," I don't know why he calls her that,
Right.
"gas her and get the out of there." He then walks off. MM says he gives the worst pep talks, and Frenchie's like, he really does.
I love it. I love
It's
that.
great.
Part,
it's
dude.
great.
It's absolutely
Just out of
brilliant,
left
dude.
field.
Yeah.
What's Sporty Spice up to? Yeah.
Well, he stops them from splitting up and gets them refocused. It's amazing.
Yeah.
On the Spice Girls.
The next scene, we are greeted with "Tell Me What You Want" by the Spice Girls in the audio track.
Now, if we were in Dune, would the Spice Girls go over differently?
Yes. They would be in the prequel books.
Okay, sorry.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Small diversion.
Sorry.
Right. So we're greeted with "Tell Me What You Want" by the Spice Girls. We see a package van speeding, breaking through a locked gate, and we see a billboard of Oceanland in the background. Inside the van, we can see the Deep has stolen a dolphin. He says, "Next stop, the Atlantic Ocean." Okay. He has a spray bottle and he's misting the dolphin.
I'm so sorry.
There is a conversation between the Deep and the dolphin, and naturally, I do not speak fish, and dolphins aren't fish, right? They're mammals, but I don't speak marine life.
Right.
We can only understand what the Deep is saying, and it sounds like, based on the Deep's responses, that the dolphin is coming onto him,
yes,
and being inappropriate. The Deep ends the conversation with, okay, if I just touch it, will you just shut up? I don't even want to think about this.
I don't either.
Okay.
Oh,
we begin to see police lights flashing outside the vehicle, chasing the van. One of the cops gets in front of the van and cuts it off, causing the Deep to slam on the brakes. This causes the unsecured dolphin, who is suspended midair in the back of the van, to be launched forward.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm having to wipe tears out of my eyes right now.
The show goes into slow motion, and the Deep is looking to his right as the dolphin is passing him, and we hear, "If you wanna be my lover," in slow motion, and then the dolphin goes through the windshield, slides like 30 feet on the ground, and then is promptly run over by a semi-truck.
Oh
And
my goodness.
The music, the show continues at full speed, and the music is going on in the background.
Oh, this is so uncomfortable, dude. I cannot stop laughing through these scenes. The eye contact they make as he's flying through the windshield.
I really don't know where to go with this, outside of the fact that it just appears that all of our suspicions about the Deep have been confirmed.
Yes.
The lipstick on the blowhole, I mean...
He really is a joke. He's proved it to us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's too much.
It's heavy duty, dude. That can't be unseen.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Absolutely.
We go back to the train station. The girl is walking quickly through a crowd. She sees Butcher coming directly towards her, and she begins running the other direction. She jumps down onto the train tracks and is running along them when A Train comes from the opposite direction at full speed and just tackles her practically and throws her over his shoulder, and he begins running. And we're treated to a really awesome slow motion sequence where she reaches behind and rips his glasses off. And I hadn't thought about how he would need those when he's moving that fast to protect his eyes. But yeah, that makes sense. He stops. She gets up and begins running. She runs at normal speed. He comes out of nowhere and launches her through a wall. I think he punches her and she goes through a wall.
Yeah.
And then she's crawling along the ground, kind of stunned. And he comes up, and this part's pretty brutal.
It is. It's tough.
He starts repeatedly bashing her head against the wall extremely quickly. You know,
how many times do you think he gets her head in there? 50, 60, 100 times?
Yeah, easily.
More?
Easily.
Easily.
It goes on for way longer than it should. And it's making noises like Huey's fists hitting the wall in that restaurant. It's not good. Yeah. Frenchie wants to help, but Butcher stops him, saying the girl's and Frenchie thinks quickly and calls out to the crowd around them that A Train's in the subway station, and they all come over and begin to start asking for pictures with him. They can't see what's going on with this girl because there's a half-height wall, so they only see his upper body over the wall. Yeah,
they don't see him slamming her head repeatedly.
Right. She is able to kind of get away when he starts obliging the crowd to take pictures with them.
That says something about how tough she is right there, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because I mean, he was rapidly, the wall was cracking. Let's just put it that way. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. The girl is running in the sewer. Butcher and Frenchie and MM are following her. She reaches kind of a dead end. She turns around. She's trapped. Frenchie, or who was it that had the grenade?
I think it's Frenchie.
Yeah, Frenchie hands the grenade to Butcher, right? No, and then Butcher has the grenade. He's about to gas her.
Okay.
And then Frenchie stops him. He says, "What if she's a Spice Girl?" It's
she
great.
Would be a great Spice Girl, dude.
It's great. Frenchie slowly approaches her. She's in a defensive stance, and he asks her to let him help her go home. She jumps on top of him, knocking him to the ground. Butcher quickly pulls the pin, throws that gas grenade in there, knocks them both out. And he says, "She ain't no Spice Girl."
She ain't no Spice Girl.
We're now taken to a beach. We see parts of the airplane begin to wash up on the shore. There is an NYPD police car there. Homelander is walking the wreckage. Maeve is standing there, arms crossed. She's looking really upset.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
There's a doll that's kind of floating right at the edge of the water. The waves are making it move around, and she's looking at it. There's a news crew there reporting on the scene. Homelander is standing kind of a ways away from them, probably 30 feet or so, but he's still within earshot. And he says loud enough for them to hear, "They didn't have to die." And they hear him. The news crew comes over, asking him if he has something to say. And then we see Madeline is watching this broadcast in her office. Homelander repeats, "They didn't have to die." Homelander and Maeve arrived 3 minutes after the plane went down. He blames the response time on the fact that they are not in the chain of command. If NORAD had called them before they scrambled the jets, they could have saved them. He lists out the casualty numbers. He says 123 men, women, and children died on that plane. And he's now turned on tears for his little speech, and he pauses for effect.
Dude, and that is a masterful scene from him crying.
Mm-hmm. He's completely controlling the situation.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Brilliant.
He continues that if they let the Supes into the military, he will never let this happen again.
Let me double back here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think now Homelander is smart? I think we both agree that he is pretty smart. He may not be super smart or nothing like that, but he's a smart enough fellow. But when they're on the plane getting ready to let it go down, do you think he realized that maybe this is what we need? Once he realized that the scenario was lost, I can't do nothing about it. Let's just move on to the next scene.
It's hard to say.
It is. I'm just kind of curious.
I feel like initially he was a little bit overwhelmed by that situation when he realized there's nothing they could do. But then he quickly just wanted to get out of there. It was like he just wanted to be away from the people.
Yeah, I messed it up. The only way to get away is just to get away. So
yeah.
Okay.
In terms of when he came up with the plan, it'd be hard to say.
That's true. Just curious.
It's an interesting question.
It is. I just kind of fell on me.
Yeah. Homelander asks Maeve if that's right, that if they get into the military, they'll never let it happen again. And she just nods. She doesn't say anything. Homelander continues. He tells the audience to speak with their congressman, that they'll listen to the people. And together, they'll make sure that this never happens to their great nation ever again. He says, God bless you and God bless America.
Brilliant.
Farther down the beach, someone yells, we hear you, Homelander. And he says, and I hear you, brother. And the world hears you. And very, very soon, whoever did this to us will hear from all of us. The crowd at the beach begins clapping for him and cheering, chanting his name. And Maeve is just shaking her head. The episode fades to black and the crowd is chanting his name. It's a really powerful ending.
It's a very, very powerful, dark ending.
It is. Yeah.
And now you kind of start seeing where the show starts leaning to.
Yeah. We began this episode about how intense this episode was going to be. And that plane crash in particular was, it's one of the more impactful scenes that I have seen.
It is. It's very humanizing because I think part of that, I didn't look at it the way that you said it, was where he realized that he was overwhelmed. And when you look at it like that, it makes him seem a little bit different and more like, okay, I just got to get out of here. And so because something I saw as more premeditated doesn't come off that way anymore to me. So thank you. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if that's 100% what's going on. I picked up a little bit on it, but yeah, it could be either. It could go either way. Coin flip. It was premeditated or, this. So yeah.
Very good though.
Yeah. But,
excellent episode.
It was great. I particularly love the Spice Girls talk.
Right.
The background.
There's a lot that went on in this episode, man. There's a ton that went on.
It was an action-packed episode.
We introduced to the Japanese girl. You get these some more history on the boys themselves. So there's a lot went on. The plane wreck, it helps you. That's gonna help them out.
Oh, absolutely.
Homelander was
especially the way he spun it, and Madeline was really. You could tell she was eating it up. She saw the way out. She was concerned at first.
Yes,
because their whole thing was to save the plane, but then she saw him spin it.
Yeah, she was. I think she's kind of proud of him in a dark way at that moment.
He was a good boy.
He was a good boy. Nicely put.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
No, this is a great episode.
It was really good today.
Really enjoyed doing the episode with you, man. Good back and forth. We keep getting better at it. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome. Cool.
Groovy.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.